is our 154 animation part 1. What we're going to look at is just basics of animation. Let's just get started. First thing we want to look at is frames per second, which is basically how many individual frames are rendered. The way you change that is you go down the time configuration, and you'll see the default is NTSC, which is American non-high definition TV, as opposed to PAL, which is European, and which is 25 frames a second, and then film, which is 24 frames a second. We're going to do 15 frames a second, which is half NTSC, and the reason we're going to do that is it enables us to basically render it out and make it small, but if we want to make it to DVD, we're just doubling the number each frame, each rendering in the last 2 frames. There's some other options here, and we're going to leave this all kind of alone right now, but you can adjust the speed, you can change the length of your timeline, all those types of things. So we'll hit OK. And you might have seen while I was doing that we got some adjustments. So let's grab the ball, and we're just going to do different. Now there's different ways that we can add keyframes, which is how you animate. And I recommend using the auto key technique. The set key is another option, but what it does is it assigns keys to all the channels for an object, so it can get really messy really quick. So you toggle on the auto key, and the instant you do that, it's warning you, hey, I'm in animation mode. And the idea is anytime you make a change, it gets recorded. So let's move the slider over to 10. And at this point, we're going to pull the ball up. And if you look, it's added a frame at 0. And so it's recorded that. Now, if we want to have this just bounce up and down, we don't need to do anything besides I can go to 20 and I can manually pull this back down, or I can be lazy and I can border select, left mouse button both of these, and if I hold down the shift key, we can drag off a copy. And now if you look, you'll see that we actually get 1 bounce, 2 bounces. And I can now, right now this is only going to 50. So let's change the time so we basically have even. So let's open back up time configuration, and right now the end time is 50. If I change that to 60, and OK, now you can see that now we can take 30 and hold down the shift key again and drag it out the copies. Actually 40, so I had a little too much there, but you can see now that we get this going up and down, and if I hit play, you can see now we have the animation. The animation only shows in the active viewport. So that's the basics. If for some reason you want to remove a key, you can just right click, and you can do delete selected key, so you have some work. But the rest of the work we're going to do is actually in what's called the curve editor. So you go to graph editor, and you'll see there's 2 types. We'll talk about the dope sheet next week. Track view curve editor. And let's also turn off auto key because we don't have to add any more keys. Everything else for the ball animation is all done inside the curve editor. So we'll open up the curve editor, and we'll work with resizing this a little. And now you see there's different ways that you can side, so I can frame the whole horizontal. And let's select all these keys and do frame horizontal, and now we can also do frame vertical as well. And now you can see the different keys that we created. And as we scrub, let me move this window open a little so you can see what's happening. If we play, you can see that the scrubber moves through. Now we have more keys, but at 60 it goes back, and that's why it has the gray. Now the only key channel that we've animated is Z, which is up and down, but you see that there are keys added for Y and also X. So X is across the screen. Moving this way, you can see red. Y is green, G, and then Z is blue. So at this point, we don't really have to worry about these, and actually if you wanted to, you can actually select all the keys for that and delete it because we don't need it. The X, we're going to need all the keys except for the last one. And let me actually go over and get rid of this one right here so that we're consistent. Okay, so we got that set up, and we'll go back and change this later. So with Z, as I'm playing this, you'll see everything is going up and down. And what's happening with the curves is it's playing the curve slightly different, so you'll see it kind of speeds up and slows down. Now, let me get rid of this key as well. Let's get rid of that, delete. and go back. And now let's look at ways that we can change this curve to create different moods and styles. So I'm just going to keep playing while I do this. Now up here you'll see there's these different curve options, which are basically altering what's called the tangents, which are the little handles. If I go to linear, everything is a straight line, and what you should see is it moves much more even, like a machine. There's also stepped, which is good if you want to move the camera around, so it's literally going from one frame to the other. And then we have ease in, which you see, and ease out. And you can see you have the two different options. What we're going to do is just use the auto tangent. Now you can see tangents on all the handles. Now if I click off, you see the tangents are gone. So I want to go tangents, view, interactive, all tangents. Okay, so now we have that on so we can see it. And now we want to start to alter and edit these. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to hold down the shift key. And I'm going to do what's called breaking the tangent. And then I'm going to mirror it on this side. And now you should notice that this goes up, hangs, and goes down. And what's happening is it's speeding up the closer it's getting to the bottom. So you should notice that that's a bad bump, that's a bad bump, and then this one actually looks realistic. So then what we'll do is hold down the shift key and duplicate this one as well. Now you don't want to put these inside, you want to keep them on the outside. And generally with this bounce you want them all to be the same size if you have a consistent bounce. If you want to slow down, which is what you have to do for the assignment, you'll change this. So I'm going to make these all the same height. And let's get this one and set that up. And now you can see now it looks much more realistic because it's bouncing up, hanging, and then going down. Now the things that we can do with this, the top part, if you increase and decrease this and pull it out, all it's going to do is adjust what's called the hang time. So if I go to pull this out, and if you do it on one side, you want to do it on the other, what it's doing is it's hanging out a little bit longer. So the lighter your object is, like a beach ball, the slower it's going to bounce. If for some reason you want to fix this, you can just go back to A and reset it. You can do that with everything. But the big thing is to make sure that these break. Now the other thing that will happen with the bounce is it's actually going to decrease over time. And the way you do that is you basically bring down this time, and you bring down this, and now you see the curves are going to get a little off. So the thing to be aware of is basically each bounce is a proportional scaled version of the first bounce. So not only is the height going to be less, but also the duration or the amount of time is going to be less. So we can actually move that over and get that centered. And then you can see that this is going up to about 5, 6 around there. So let's do this one as well. So the same. And then this one you can see is way too big. So we're going to bring this in. And then we have to bring this down. Bring that. Now that's too far. So let's bring this one up. Actually, I threw this off because you can see that should be down here. And this one should be here. So this is a good instance to just kind of reset that, get it flat. Pull this one down. And Alt or Shift key to break it. Pull it up. And then move it into place. And now it goes bounce, a little less, a little less. And it stops. Now you'll notice the last bounce, it looks like it's hitting glue. And that's because there's no more keys after this. So you have to actually animate a good amount of these until you run out of frames. So you can only do 15 bounces a second, so eventually it'll be too quick. But you can actually literally go in and set these up and get it all set up. So that's the basics for setting up your animation. Now the rule is the angle should be straight through here. The same angle or slope should be the same through here. And you can actually see if I look at this one, and then this one, then this one's actually a little too high. And this one needs to be higher. And then the same of running that, through that, through that. This one's too high as well. And then that one. The wider the angle, the more it bounces. And it takes to slow down, so the bounce here it is. The higher, the steeper the angle, basically the less bounces. So something like a golf ball usually bounces less than a basketball. And then basically these also control how quickly the springiness. So the higher you put this, the more springy it is. The closer you get to linear, the more air is in the object. So you can kind of play around and get some different setups and things with that. Now the other things to show you is you're going to do 3 ball animations. So we'll close out the curve editor and we'll just stop this for a second. And let's just go back to the first frame. And now what we want to do is we want to actually do an animation where we have 3. So what I can do here, and I'll just pull these off, but you can do copy as well, is there's the second ball. Actually, let's do it in the top view. So, okay, so that's ball 1. Hold down the shift key. Oh, hold down the shift key, and make sure that auto key is off when you do this. So this is going to be ball 2. And then we also have hold down shift key and copy, and now we have ball 3. Now when you copy something, all the keys go along for the ride. So if we actually look here in this window and we look at the animation, you see that they're all moving up and down at the same time. So that's just something to be aware of. But the nice thing you can do is you can go into the curve editor, or you can do this in the timeline. So let's see, we're going to do 3 bounces, so let's increase the amount of time up to 180, and I'll show you how to do each one. So okay, so let's select the second ball, and you can see right now it starts at 0 and ends at 60. If I hold down the left mouse button, now I'm saying this starts at 60 and it ends at 120. Now you can see it's different. And then this one, we'll go into the curve editor and do the same thing. So here are the times in the curve editor, and you can see we have the different channels. So I can order select. Actually, what we have to do is we have to, grab the whole thing, and then we can hit it, and we want this to go all the way to 120. So there we go. So now you can see that that one is different as well. So if we go back and then we hit rewind and hit play, let's do it in this viewport. Now you can see one bounces, and the next one, and finally the last one. So that's how you can get that to do it. I'd like all the animations to be in this, all the bounces to be in the same animation and render them all out together, rather than doing them separate. So don't, please just don't do that. Now when you're working with these can get confusing. So if I right-click any object and do Object Properties, there is an option for trajectory, and that actually shows your animation path. Now right now you don't see anything, and that's because we haven't rendered or added keys for X. So if we look at X, you can see here's the starting point and the ending point for the object, or for the ball. And what I want to do is I want to take, not both of them, because that's our start point. I want to take the end point and move it up, and now you can see what it's doing is it's starting to pull across the screen, and I'll have to pull this up substantially if I want to get it bounce across the screen. You can see I'll go higher than that. And I can also do zoom so I can see everything. And the way that this works is it starts slow, and then gradually over time it slows down, so you can do ease out, which means it basically gets slower as it goes out. And now if I watch this animation and we watch the last ball when it hits, and actually I want this to be straight. Okay, there we go. And then we get bounce, 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 bounce. Okay. So when we get all that done, we do all our adjustments, everything. Now we're ready to render this out. And the way you render it out is you go to Rendering, Render Setup. And what we've been doing, and this default, is we've been doing single. So you want to do active time segment, and right now the default is 0 to 180. If for some reason you want to define it differently, you can do that. Custom size, we want to change to 320 by 240. So make sure that this changes if you're rendering a movie, but it's only one frame, you forgot to hit this. You want to make sure it's 320 by 240 so that it's small. That's also why we're doing 15 frames a second. And then the other thing you have to do is you have to actually save the file. So go into Files, and I'm just going to plunk this on my desktop, and then rendering 1. And when I go to choose it, now if you have 32-bit, you can do QuickTime. Oh, let's check this out. The new version, you can do a QuickTime. So we'll hit Save and Setup, and give it a sec to load up. Hopefully it doesn't crash. We'll see, it might crash. Okay, there we go. So now we have QuickTime options. In older versions of 3D Max, they didn't have this version available. So if you do, you want to go to H264, which is the best quality, knock it up to best, and do 15 frames a second, and hit OK. And now we can render this out. And let's make sure we're rendering from the perspective camera. Okay, lock that and render it. And there it goes. Now it's going to render the different frames. You can see an update for it. And these will render pretty quick because we're not doing anything. I don't want you to worry about materials, those types of things. The only thing I think you could do is change the background color, change the plane, and change the color of the balls and the size so you kind of know what's going on. You don't necessarily need to do anything else. Okay, so let's render that out, or let's see what the animation looks like. So now we will open that with QuickTime Player. Let's see what it looks like. My preference is QuickTime over the AVI. You can see there's actually, it created these other two files. You don't need these files. The only one you need is this file here. And let's open up QuickTime. Come on. Open with QuickTime. We'll try it one more time, and if it doesn't pop open, I will open it with. There we go. Okay, so now we hit play, and now here's our animation. And if I go up to Window, Movie Inspector, I can confirm this is H262, 320 by 240, 15 frames a second. And this is what I'll submit along with the actual file for homework. If for some reason you're using an older version of 3D Max, the other option for file format, if you don't have the QuickTime Movie, is to change it and go to the AVI, which is the other version. And then we'll go to AVI and we'll do the setup for AVI, which is less. There's a DV encoder, the MJPEG compressor, the ones you want, and do maximum quality and hit OK. This is going to look crummier than the other animation using the other file format. This is fine. You do the same thing if hitting save, and you play the animation as well when you submit it. So that wraps up this lecture.